For 10 years, I hunted with a modified choke and whatever kind of bullets I could find. And I'm still that guy because I use my shotgun in a different way. I'll kill a coyote out to 300 yards on 8-power all day long. I don't know. That's just what I'm used to. That's what I do. I feel like if you're using turrets on coyotes and you're having to dial, you haven't done your job. No, that was just my underwear, man. Just out there hanging out with my buddies, drinking a few beers and shooting a couple local coyotes. He held the tournament record for the most coyotes ever turned in. And this year was the first year that it's ever been broken, and it was broken by my partner and I. If we had the nuclear bomb and where there was nothing left but dust, it'd be a cockroach and a coyote that was left, and maybe a crow. Don't give up. If you really love it and you got a passion for it, you'll figure it out. What's up, everybody? This is Garrett Johnson, a.k.a. the Brush Wolf Hunter, and you're listening to Living Country in the City.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey y'all, welcome to episode 86 of Living Country in the City. Want to say a huge thank you to all y'all that have been tuning in each week, and those of you that have really taken the next step and logged on to my support page and either picked up merchandise or gone as far as logging on to my Patreon page and contributing monthly to help support Living Country in the City. If y'all want to join the team and find out how you can help, make sure y'all head on over to the support page. That's livingcountryinthecity.com/support. Lots of different ways you can really help out here. It takes a lot of funds and a lot of time to really keep this podcast going. So I appreciate y'all that have been helping out. I cannot say thank you enough. Also, a big shout out to Sawyer Products for their continual support of the podcast. I would not be able to do what I'm doing here at Living Country in the City without their help. If y'all are looking for those really essential products for the backcountry, stuff like water filtration, first aid, insect repellent, and sunscreen, you really can't go wrong with Sawyer Products. Make sure y'all check them out at sawyer.com. All right, y'all, now on to today's episode. I have recently been out doing a whole lot of predator calling, coyote hunting. And, you know, I know that now that seasons are ending for a lot of y'all, this is your only opportunity to get out and hunt. Additionally, for a lot of y'all that are looking to kind of get that initial taste and get started into hunting, this is a really awesome, inexpensive, and low-impact way for y'all to get started. I've called in a few animals, but suffice to say, my predator hunting has not been nearly as successful as I would really like it to be. So I reached out and hit up the man with the glorious mane himself, the coyote killer, the song dog slayer, the one and only brush wolf hunter, Garrett Johnson. Y'all, if you don't follow this guy on Instagram, you need to go check him out. He's a crazy successful coyote hunter, super knowledgeable about these animals, and really funny dude. I had a great time chatting with him, so I hope you all enjoy today's episode. All right, y'all, welcome to episode 86 of Living Country in the City. Garrett, thanks so much for hopping on today.
Heck yeah, man. Pumped to do it.
Awesome. So one thing I always like to start out with is maybe give a little bit of an introduction just about yourself and kind of how you got your start in hunting and the outdoors.
Man, I grew up doing this stuff. My dad taught me as a young boy. It's just lifelong tradition of hunting mule deer and whatnot. My family, just basically like anybody gets to days. That's how it was for us during the deer season and things like that. But as far as the predator end of things, I got into that more the high school age. Yeah, man, I just love doing it. I've been doing it almost 20 years. I guess a little over 20 years right now, but started hand calling and getting the basics down and watching some guys that I looked up to and learning everything I possibly could.
So in the little bit that I've done, in the posts I've made about coyote hunting, and I took a fox earlier this year for the first time, I had a lot of people and a lot of discussions come up around, I don't know why you predator hunt. It's, you don't eat the meat, you're just doing it because you love killing, or you're just doing it because you want to be able to get more tags next year. Why I mean, there's definitely excitement involved. There's a sporting aspect to it, but why is predator hunting important, and why do you really feel that you do it?
Man, I run a brand solely around, the brand name is Mule Deer Insurance, and it's only, there's a lot of methods behind mule deer insurance. There's a lot of things that eat mule deer fawns and take down full size deer, but I kind of base that around the coyote, just because you're killing some coyotes, you're ensuring that there's going to be some more mule deer. And I've always loved to hunt mule deer. And I know that a lot of these areas that I hunt, it's key to take out some of these bigger, older, wiser coyotes and, try to help out a couple mule deer. I'm not saying it really does. I'm kind of on the fence about the whole bounty aspect we have here in Utah and things like that, because the coyote is a survivalist, and they're crazy smart and crazy adaptable. So I've talked to government trappers my whole life, and I've been around and I've den coyotes. A lot of people don't know what that means, but these coyotes are so smart that I feel like they know, and I feel like it's been proven that if their food source is there and there's not a high concentrated number of coyotes, they actually adapt to that and can have more coyote pups than normal. And if there are more coyotes and less food, they'll have one or two pups in a litter. They're that smart. And, I just feel like predator hunting, it's fun. Like you said, it's a sporting aspect stuff. I do it because, I feel like I'm helping out a little bit, and I just love it. I just love how smart these creatures are. I have the utmost respect for coyotes. They to me are the prettiest canine species out there in certain times of the year. Like right now, they're just furred up. They're gorgeous. They're cunning, and I just honestly love coyotes. It's weird that I shoot so many of them, but I respect the hell out of these animals, like really, really, really do. And a lot of the guys that I know are the exact same way. They truly love these animals, and we do it for fur and to make a little extra money on the side, really. I mean, that's why I do it.
Well, and I think people tend to forget that, all of this is still managed. Yeah, it's not necessarily like an elk where you have to put in for a draw to get your tags and, spend all this money. But I mean, you're still buying a hunting license. You're still, it's still something that's managed by biologists who dedicate their lives to the health of these ecosystems and different species, coyotes included. And we don't have to put in for tags because they do have that crazy that's one of those things that I've heard from many sources too, that when those populations get low and the food source is plentiful, they have their litter sizes just start increasing. And it's such a crazy thing about those animals that they are absolutely fascinating and they're gorgeous.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't feel like what people don't understand, we're not ever going to put a dent in the coyote population. I am sorry. And I feel like sometimes with the bounty and the pressure that we put on these coyotes, we're creating a mutant, honestly. We're creating an ultra species. They're getting so smart and they're getting so adaptable that I honestly see more coyote numbers than I used to. I mean, I don't feel like we're putting a dent in this canine species, honestly. We're never going to, regardless. I mean, if we had the nuclear bomb and there was nothing left but dust, it'd be a cockroach and a coyote that was left, and maybe a crow. And that's the way I feel. I mean, there's some way that a coyote's going to survive. That's just who they are. And I honestly, that's why I respect them. I feel like where we benefit with trimming some of these coyotes out is the smart ones. So the government trappers are typically sent after the smart coyotes, like the ones that are getting in the sheep herd. And they're usually like a pair of coyotes that have learned. They understand, they know how to get around the sheep herd, they know how to get around the Pyrenees dogs that they've got there. They're the kind of coyotes that they're a problem coyote. It's no different than probably you guys deal with down there in Southern California or wherever. They adapt, they understand what they need to do to kill, and they figure things out, and sometimes they become unkillable. And here's just a quick story of my buddy calling me, "Hey Garrett, I got a serious problem. I've got these two coyotes. My mother heifers will lay down and they'll go to give birth to calves, and the coyotes will wait till she lays down to give birth, and they'll run over there and they'll pull the calf, and they'll kill the calf while she's laying down. They'll basically pull it out of her." And I ended up killing one out of the two of those coyotes, and his problem stopped. It's like once one learns it, it's like they teach the other one. It's crazy, but once I had taken one of that equation out of there, it actually stopped, and he stopped having that problem. I'm not saying I killed both those coyotes, but I feel like I killed one of the problem coyotes, and it helped him. That's where I feel like that's the kind of coyotes I really like to kill. You know, that style of coyotes. We're never going to put a dent in these coyotes.
Well, I mean, that's like the trophy coyote right there. That's like killing the big slob mule deer, or, you know, that giant elk. You know, it's the reason they get that big and had is because they know the secrets. You know, they're not dumb. And yeah, I mean, it's not about wiping out coyotes. That's not what you're trying to do. You know, some people may look at a lot of these pictures or videos or something, and, you know, it's almost kind of shocking. Like, you see, you know, a truck bed that's literally stacked high with coyotes from, you know, a group of guys going out, and without context, people may not understand that. But it's important, I think, for them to realize it's not about trying to wipe out coyotes. It's about trying to achieve a better balance, and for all species, coyotes included. You know, They get overpopulated, things are not going to go well for them. They're going to run out of food sources. They're going to get sick. And I think that's what people miss about predator hunting, about coyote hunting in general, is that they're a species that needs to be managed just like any other for the benefit of the whole ecosystem.
Right.
And you, speaking of loving coyotes, you had a couple of pups for a while, didn't you? Do you still have those?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at a picture of my little girl right here. She, I did. I had a couple super lucky coyotes because, you know, we den coyotes here in the state of Utah for the $50 bounty, and that's what the government wants us to do, and that's what we do. But I thought to myself, hell, I'm going to raise these two pups up and see what I can do. I've talked to a bunch of people about it, and they've never had any success. I want to see what I can do, and, you know, I did it, and it was good and it was bad. I mean, I wish sometimes I wouldn't have done it, because coyotes don't deserve that. They don't, you know, they didn't know any fear, and they died because of that. I didn't kill those pups, but they died because they didn't have any fear, and that was not fair to them. And, you know, that's something I'll never do again, but it was a great learning experience, and it taught me a lot about coyotes. It really did. I mean, things I didn't understand. I didn't understand that a coyote can be completely gorged full of food and still want to come over to a call and at least investigate what was going on, not necessarily coming to eat it, but their curiosity is crazy. I mean, it's insane. And the things they do to adapt. I mean, my coyote pups would eat until their little bellies were, I mean, you pop them with a pin, they'd exploded, and they'd go regurgitate it. I'd follow them and kind of watch them from afar, and they'd go dig a hole and they'd regurgitate it and bury it. And that's how they survive. I mean, they're not going to have a meal the next day in the wild, and they know that. And so they'll eat and eat and eat, and then they'll go hide it from their family members or whoever, and they'll go pile it off somewhere else, and then they're unsuccessful catching a rabbit the next day. They'll go back to their pile and they'll eat it. Or they save it until winter, and they know where it's at. They're highly intelligent, and they go back and they dig it up and they eat it. I mean, these coyotes they're insanely smart. It's crazy to me, and it was really fun, to get to know those two and have them grow up into adulthood and whatnot. But it was illegal in the state of Utah for me to keep them in cages, so I live out in the middle of nowhere, and they just lived around the yard and did and came, went as they pleased, and that was ultimately their fate. But that has a lot to do with the Utah bounty and people the way they are in Utah about coyotes and stuff like that. But neither here nor there. But yeah, it was a neat experience.
Yeah, that's good. I remember I think one of the first videos I saw of you, I think it may have been how I found your profile, was somebody had shared the clip of you holding the two of them, and how can anybody think these two are vicious? Look, they won't even bite. I swear, I watched that about 4 times in a row, and I was crying, laughing so hard at that video. I'll have to share a link to it if people listening haven't seen it. But yeah,
it went viral. I mean, they were brother and sister, and of course I was kind of pitting them against each other. They didn't want to be held, and they didn't want to be put each other's faces in one another. They're coyotes, and it was just fun to get to know them like that. But yeah, I had a couple videos like that went viral, and having them come in the house and jump around and do what they do, and they're just mischievous. They were just super mischievous. They'd tear anything up, and they chewed every one of my trees in half in the yard, and they dug giant holes in the yard, and I mean, they were the most mischievous canine I've ever had around the house.
Oh, that's crazy, man. That's definitely a super unique experience, I can imagine. I'm not sure that most people would be willing to attempt either.
Yeah, no, I definitely do not recommend that. That's, like I said, it's not fair to the coyotes, and it's just not. I mean, they're born and bred to be wild. That's where they need to be, and I screwed up and did that, but it's a learning experience, and hopefully I can, pass that information on to certain people that are maybe thinking about it. And, it's just not something that needs to happen. And it was fun, but yeah, anyway.
So brush wolf hunter. It wasn't actually until I found your profile that I'd heard that term for coyotes. I'd heard song dogs, I've heard yotes, coyotes, coyotes, all of that stuff. Yeah. So is brush wolf your preferred term?
No, that was just kind of between me and my buddy. We read it in the school books. Actually, it's just an Indian term for the coyote. It was I don't know. I just kind of thought it was a cool name. But yeah, that's kind of how it came. It's just an Indian term back in the day, and I just kind of thought it was cool.
Awesome. Well, I've just recently kind of started getting interested in this whole predator calling, predator hunting, especially coyotes. I've been interested in a lot of stuff, big game and elk and deer, and those all have very specific seasons. They can tend to be very high-priced endeavors. One of the cool things about, like I said, predator calling, especially coyotes, is one, most places you can do it any time of year, and two, I mean, it does not take a lot to kind of get started in as far as the basics of predator hunting.
Right. Absolutely. All you need is a couple bucks in your pocket to go buy a hand call, really. I mean, if you've already got the gun and bullets, now you're just searching out the knowledge and really all you need to call a coyote is an open reed call, and you can basically do anything you want to do to a coyote with that.
I know of a lot of people that have used all sorts of calls, not necessarily specifically, a designed predator call, but I know of people that have fooled around with turkey calls and elk calls and all kinds of different stuff. What are your go-to calls as far as maybe something for someone that's just starting out? What would you maybe recommend as far as calls?
I like a softer open reed call. If you can learn how to run an open reed call, very versatile. I mean, you can do squeaks, pup distress, you can do coyotes, you can do howls, I mean, my go-to call sits around my neck, and I've had it for almost 20, and it's Carlton's Fighting Cow Call. And a lot of people are, I'm like, well, it's basically the same thing, really. I mean, it's just how you read and how your reed's cut, thickness of your reed. I mean, not to get into that technical of stuff, but it's just knowing how to blow the call, really, is what it comes down to, is spending time with it, either annoying your family member, solo running down the highway or what you do, but just the practice is key, really, as far as that goes. There's not a lot of diversity between a whole bunch of different call companies that I've found, and that's probably not really good of me to say because I have a lot of friends that are call builders. But I mean, if you know what you're doing and you know what sounds you want to make, you can basically make anything.
Pretty much buying a better call really won't do you too much until you first really learn how to use them and how to call. Yeah,
I mean, no, I wouldn't go spending a bunch of money. The key with coyotes and the key with anything is being in the location, really. I mean, you're not going to call coyotes in if there's not coyotes there. And if they're super educated, it's not going to, I mean, yeah, there's guys that'll probably call, but I mean, you're not going to have a bunch more success, a little bit more success with an electronic call running some vocalization sounds that you can't mimic on an open reed or a hand call or just anything like that. But just, you got to area the coyotes. I mean, that's just plain and simple. If they're not there, if they're educated, you're just going to have a lot rougher time.
So you did mention electronic calls. What are, obviously you have the ability to kind of make sounds that you wouldn't necessarily be able to duplicate with a hand call or an open reed call. What are maybe some of the other benefits for someone using an electronic call, or maybe even also some of the weaknesses over a hand call?
I don't think there's anything electronic call will weaken you, because you're not going to be moving your hand. You're not going to be moving. Plus you're going to be downwind of the call, which is key. I mean, that's typically where your coyotes are going to circle to, is the downwind. That's just, I mean, yeah, we got the bombers that come flying across, don't care. Kamikaze coyotes is what we call them. But, the benefits, I don't really know. I mean, I kind of drawn a blank, but I mean,
you kind of said them right there. You're not forced into kind of moving around. You're not, and you're able to separate yourself, I think, from the call a little bit compared to using a hand call. So you have the ability to move yourself downwind from that call.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. That's probably the biggest advantage, for sure.
I definitely, in my very little bit that I've done, I've kind of started relying on the electronic call, just basically out of sheer inexperience. I had some buddies down in Arizona that took me out to call foxes, and we also called in a couple of coyotes to a couple 100 yards before they spotted us. But I'm just kind of, scrambling around from that little bit of experience I got with them trying to figure stuff out. And that's honestly one of the big reasons I wanted to talk to you. Like I always comment, the podcast is mostly just an excuse to be able to sit down and ask knowledgeable guys like yourself a bunch of questions about stuff I want to do. But yeah, I've kind of been relying on the electronic call just, because of its ease. I was fortunate, I'd bought one years ago for, I think 6 or 7 years ago for some reason. I never even turned it on until a couple weeks back. But, are there any resources you could recommend about, using those hand calls where, if somebody wanted to get started, where could they start looking?
Shoot, man, I don't know. I bet you could just Google it on Facebook or I don't know, what do you call that? YouTube. You could YouTube it, I guess. I don't really know. I just learned by mimicking the sounds that I've heard before and just trying it and going that route. But that was a long time ago, way before YouTube and any of this stuff. You guys have it way too easy these days, that's for sure. I mean, the resources and the knowledge you can get in a day is more than I could have got in a year. So, I mean, there's guys coming up and coming, young kids and stuff that are doing it nowadays that are on my level that I wasn't even on for 5-6 years of my calling coyotes, and they just get the information and things like this, that we're doing right here is just crazy. I mean, how it spreads and the word spreads and people figure it out. There it is. I mean, it's getting super popular.
So what other gear would you say is essential for someone starting out? Obviously, they're going to need a weapon, whether that's a rifle or a shotgun. And actually that might be a good place to start. From what I've seen just from your Instagram, you seem to prefer hunting coyotes with a rifle, correct?
No, not prefer. My shotgun's right to my side majority of the time. So the shotgun I use for panic situations and basically the kamikaze coyotes and things like that, and multiples and just different situations for the shotgun. I'm not like a shotgun guy that goes out to hunt coyotes with the shotgun, but I mean, it's always usually right there off my hip. So I usually sit with the shotgun in hand, and then if I need the rifle, I switch to the rifle.
Okay, so you kind of keep the shotgun on hand if stuff is coming in fast and close, and then you have the rifle for maybe stuff that hangs up a bit further out. Yep,
exactly. Yeah, just reading the body language of the coyote. You know if it's going to be a easy rifle kill, or if it's going to be fun to kill with the shotgun.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of body? Obviously, you mentioned the kamikaze coyotes that are just throwing caution to the wind and come hauling ass in. What kind of signs do you look for when you first spot them as far as body language?
I mean, it's hard to explain, but the low bobbing head, kind of like a low trot, circling downwind. Of course, he's going to be a harder coyote to call in. The one that's just got his head to the ground, just coming as hard as fast as he can come, is the kamikaze coyote. And then, I mean, you got a billion different styles of dogs that we have our own language as a coyote hunter for, you know what I mean? And it's just going out and learning it and getting used to knowing what they look like in those situations and adapting to that when you're needing to, but like this last weekend in my tournament, I mean, hell, I made 2 super rookie mistakes on coyotes that, I mean, I almost feel like I got cocky and arrogant from going from a 100% weekend to the next tournament, and then having some situations and thinking I could get away with stuff when I couldn't, and they outsmarted me and they did what coyotes do, and they got away, and I lost the tournament because of it. And it's, it's all a learning curve, but I feel like I've got it figured out for the most part, but then they have days like that and they just hand me my ass.
So I definitely, I want to at one point ask you about those rookie mistakes, but really quick, just kind of finishing up what we were talking about with gear. You mentioned, you use both a shotgun and rifle. And one thing I haven't been, and, I know a lot of it can be personal preference, but one thing I haven't been able to get a ton of good answers on is, I'm using a shotgun. What would you recommend as far as, shell length and pellet size? What do you think is pretty sufficient or a good quality setup for
efficient? I mean, like I told you, I'm not a shotgun guy that goes. I have acquaintances that go out and they go out to hunt coyotes with a shotgun solely, and they develop loads and they understand chokes and they do this and they do that. I mean, for 10 years, I hunted with a modified choke and whatever kind of bullets I could find. Of course, I wasn't shooting bird shot, but I was shooting anything 4-buck, buck, double-aught, just whatever I could get my hands on. And I'm still that guy because I use my shotgun in a different way. Mm-hmm. I use my shotgun for basically rescue situations, like trying to get as many coyotes on the ground as I can, or close range, jumping over thick brush, or stuff like that, setting up for shotgun coyotes. I'm down in the thick brush, and typically my shots are only 30 yards max, and that's 2 3/4 buckshot will take care of that all day long, usually. I mean, yeah, you're going to have coyotes get away and whatnot, but I shoot 2 3/4, or I shoot 3-inch, whatever I can get my hands on, but double-aught buck, 4-buck, just anything like that, really, just to get some BBs in those coyotes, and I don't usually shoot much over, like I say, 30 yards with a shotgun, and that's really, really close. I mean, you could about kill a dog with dove shot at that range.
So what does your rifle setup look like for coyotes?
It's basic, man. I just shoot a bolt action Howa 22-250. I don't know, probably a $350 gun, but I spend a lot of money on the optics that sit up on top. And I got a great sponsor with Vortex right now, and I'm running their Razor lightweight hunter, and it's 3x15. And once again, I'm different. I mean, even different from my partner that I take everywhere with me. He runs his scope on anywhere from 10 to 11 or 10 to 12 power all the time, and I'm sitting over there on 3 power. And typically I don't kill coyotes on much over 6 to 8 power, and I'll kill a coyote out to 300 yards on 8 power all day long. And that just blows his mind. Like, he's like, how do you even see those coyotes with that? And I'm like, I don't know. That's just what I'm used to. That's what I do. So I just really like that scope. I like a low power, and it's that scope's perfect. It's got a lot of eye relief. The reticle's simple. There's not a lot going on. There's no turrets. There's no nothing. I feel like if you're using turrets on coyotes and you're having to dial, you haven't done your job as a coyote hunter, a coyote caller. I mean, I don't see it necessary to dial and shoot coyotes. I know where my rifle shoots at 300 yards, and anything much over that's a guess, honestly, for me. But a lot of guys like to dial and do their things, and that's just not me. That's not my style.
Well, and I imagine having that lower power also gives you a lot more of an advantage when they're on the move. You're not as likely to lose them if they're hauling out of there. Right.
I kill a lot of running coyotes on low power, and I feel like that's a lot of the reason. But there's guys that kill coyotes on the run on a very high power. It's just they're used to what they're used to, and I'm used to what I'm used to, and I just feel like I can get my lead on a coyote a lot better on the power that I keep my scope at. But that, it's just kind of boils down to personal preference, really.
Well, and I think, it's important to shoot what you're comfortable shooting, how you're comfortable shooting. You're going to always have a better time than if you try and mimic somebody else's setup exactly. Obviously, want to keep in mind, you know, some of the reasons behind what they're doing. But if you feel completely uncomfortable shooting, you're not going to kill stuff. I mean, is what it comes down to.
It's like a guy shooting free throws. If you're not making the free throws, you're, you know, you're going to get down on yourself and you're going to miss more shots. But it's the same in coyote hunting. I've watched guys completely fall apart. I mean, you start missing coyotes, you get down on yourself, and it just like is a waterfall effect. But if you stay positive and can shake it off and throw the next pitch right down the pipe, you know, that's key too, especially in tournament hunting. And that's a lot of what I like to do.
Oh yeah. So is there any other essential gear, that you would recommend for someone starting out, or something that they may want to throw in their pack, as they're going out for their first few, coyote hunts?
Man, not really. I mean, I've got a lot of great sponsors, and I should probably be just pushing stuff down everybody's throat, but that's not who I am, so that's not what I'm going to do. But camouflage is a good thing if you don't know how to sit still. But honestly, I mean, a guy could go sit and blaze orange. If he sets himself up right, he's going to be able to do the same thing that the guy did in camouflage. In my opinion, I used to hunt in Levi's and a sweatshirt and cowboy boots. That's just who I was, you know. And I killed just as many coyotes then as I did now. And it's just, you just got to know how to get in the shadows. There's plenty of camouflage out there. Really, I mean, but if a guy feels better and he's more confident wearing camo, and there are situations where camouflage it comes in very handy when you can't get in shadows and you can't get in shade, you know, and it does help break up your outline, and it does help break up your movement, I feel like, a little bit. But coyotes are smart. You got to outsmart their nose. You got to outsmart their ears. I mean, they've got so many more heightened senses than what a piece of camouflage is going to help you.
Yeah. I'll admit, I am naturally like a fidgety person. It is so tough for me I've been getting a lot better at it just by sitting out there on stands and stuff. But, I definitely do not think I'm the guy that could sit out in the blaze orange and not be noticed.
Well, I mean, it is what it is, but I'm just trying to make points. I'm not really saying go do that or try it, but I mean, really, that's what I grew up doing. I mean, we had maybe a camouflage hoodie or something, or, you know, a coat or something like that. But man, I still to this day hunting solid pants, solid colors and stuff like that. My legs are typically on the ground anyway. I mean, I'm not the guy that goes and sits up on a side hill usually and stuff like that. So, I mean, I've never really cared what my legs look like.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things also where if you wear something you're comfortable in, whether it's camo or not, you're more likely to sit still regardless. So if you got some camo that may not be the most comfortable to wear or the warmest or whatever that is, you know, if you swap that out for something you're going to be comfortable in, you're a lot more likely to sit still. And
yeah,
well, man, the proof is in the pudding. I've seen some, you know, I've been following you for a while now, and I've seen some rather interesting outfits that you've killed coyotes in.
Yeah, man, 90-degree weather. I'm sure that's a first for me, skinning down to nothing but my underwear. But I mean, you just do what you do.
I was gonna say, is my memory forsaking me, or do I vaguely remember something about like an American flag Speedo at some point? No, that was just my underwear, man. Just out there hanging out with my buddies, drinking a few beers and shooting a couple local coyotes, just having fun for the day. That was just honestly, it was 90. It was close to 100 degrees that day, and it was in the middle of the day, and we were killing coyotes, so I didn't feel like there was a need to stop. But I was dying of heat, and it just happened. We got out of the truck. He's like, dude, I'm going in my underwear. I'm like, so am I. Let's do it. So off came the pants, and
we hunted in our skivvies the rest of the day.
Hey man, you're rocking your natural camouflage there.
Dude, yeah, I shotgunned 3 coyotes in my underwear in that afternoon in almost 100-degree weather. So you guys can say whatever you want to say. I don't give a shit, but it was a lot better than sitting out there in my pants. So I've killed coyotes in a rabbit outfit too.
Oh man, you gotta tell me about that right now.
That's actually on me and my partner used to do a coyote sniper YouTube channel, and man, we were going really good, but we got to the point where we were just like, we're killers, we're not cameramen. Like, why would we go and kill half the coyotes that we're normally killing just to run a camera? And so we kind of petered out on the whole coyote sniper YouTube channel, but we had a lot of great content for the year and a half that we messed around with it. But we thought it would just be funny to dress up in costumes, and so my buddy dressed up in a gorilla outfit, and I was in a full-blown rabbit suit with this ginormous head, and I killed a coyote on the very first stand we tried it.
Well, man, that coyote's probably thinking, holy shit, I've hit the jackpot.
Yeah, other than he wasn't looking at me. I mean, the footage is insane. He's coming right at the call, and I just got lucky and made a hell of a running shot on him. But it was definitely one that was pretty fun and won't forget for sure.
That's too good. I'll have to hunt that down, drop a link to it on the show notes page for this episode.
Man, it's fun. That's key though, right there, is having fun with your buddies. Honestly, that's what it boils down to. That's what we are basically all about, unless it's tournament mode, and even in tournament mode, we still are able to soak in the fun times that we're having. But I mean, it's a serious thing when we get in tournament mode and are hunting for a lot of money on the line and a lot of prestigious, belt buckles and whatever it might be, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So we know when to put down the rabbit head and put on the game face for sure.
Well, and you've had some recent success in the tournament. I saw your post the other day.
Yeah, for sure, national champion, man.
So tell me a little bit about the tournament. What's involved? What's the stakes? Nationals
is absolutely probably one of the most prestigious contests that has been held over the last, I don't even want to dare guess how long it's been running. But I mean, there's a traveling trophy that everybody's trying to win that you get to keep your hands on for a year, and your name gets to go on it alongside of some of the best that's ever graced the sport. And my idol growing up was Les Johnson. I took a lot away from the way he called and his calling style, his hand calling, the way he laid back in brush, what he did. That's kind of who I looked up to, and he's a guy that has won this tournament. I think he's honestly won it twice, but he held the tournament record for the most coyotes ever turned in. And this year was the first year that it's ever been broken, and it was broken by my partner and I, Colton Gillum, and we put 25 coyotes in the bed of the truck in one day, and 24 coyotes was the tournament record for the day and a half hunt. And we ended up killing 31 coyotes and are now the new tournament record holders. And it's just mind blowing that, we did what we did and shot 100% and had zero mistakes, and all the stars aligned, really. I mean, there's nothing went wrong that, usually does. And it's just neat. Now we have a name alongside of guys that we have looked up to our entire lives, So it's just really cool. It's, a lot of people don't know how cool it is to guys like us, but guys like us, it really means a lot. It's a lot of fun to be able to say that you're a national champion.
Well, and I think it's like that with anything that someone's passionate about, whether it's, I work in the music industry, and, I've got a lot of friends that, like, that's what they live for, is live music. I've got a ton of friends that are performers and in bands, and it's like the equivalent of, getting booked at a festival and, singing alongside someone, you grew up listening to. Like, I know got a lot of country music fans that listen to my podcast, and, it's like Lee Brice singing up next to Garth Brooks or something. It's getting a chance to be alongside your heroes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's, those guys are definitely my, they're celebrities to me when I was growing up. If I would have ever met one, I would have melded in my chair. You know what I mean? It would have been weird, and I kind of get that now. What some of these younger kids, will walk up to me and want an autograph, and it's really strange and surreal for me, because that's who I was, and they see me on Instagram and stuff like that, and it's just really neat to them. But it's no different than me being who I was at the age I was and watching Les Johnson, and what, we watched TV back then, and if we got to watch an episode of Predator Quest, it was pretty neat, and it's no different, it's just cool that I was able to do something like that and pull something like that off. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Huge congratulations to you on that. That's super impressive. I'm still struggling. I couldn't have done
it without the other guy that's not on the other line, though. There's two of us that were in this thing, and that partner of mine he's my partner for a reason. So, yeah, man, that it takes two, and yeah, for sure, it's a cool thing.
No, man, and it's cool to think, that you're inspiring a whole another group of people. You're sharing what and who knows, there's some kid that's listening to this or watching, your the Coyote Snipers YouTube channel or following you on Instagram. They may be in a few years, they may be the next ones hoisting up that trophy, throwing their name and being like, oh man, I got my name next to these guys.
Hopefully they give me a little recognition like I gave Les.
Give them a little shout out.
Yeah,
all right, guys. If you're
That's
listening,
funny.
Keep that in mind. Just remember, gotta give.
I opened my mouth for you guys. Yeah. I told you all my secrets. So give me a little kickback.
Well, I got more secrets to pry out of you. What do you use decoys at all?
I don't. No, I've tried it all. I've tried silhouette decoys of coyotes. I don't think it can hurt. It's just a lot more than I think I need to do. If I can't complete the task, what I'm trying to do without the gimmicks and certain things like that, I don't know. It's just not. Even on my electronic call, it rotates. It can do whatever you want it to do. It can have a decoy on top. It doesn't get any of those features ever used when I do it. I just throw it in the brush. All I'm there for is the speaker. I don't need it to turn. I don't need it to do anything fancy. I just, in and out type stuff. I do like decoy dogs. I really got into that the last few years, and that's a really cool method to be able to kill a lot of the smart coyotes that we can't kill. I mean, they become very vulnerable that certain, 6 months out of the year. It might even be less than that, but I mean, they become so territorial and so crazy that you can capitalize on those type of coyotes that time of year. So as far as decoy goes that way, that is by far my favorite calling style, because I love dogs. I'm a huge dog freak. Like, my dogs are my babies, and they don't ever go in kennels, and they go everywhere with me. And now I'm trying to, develop a decoy dog and train and do stuff like that so that I can have a constant hunting partner.
So now what, I've seen a couple videos here and there, but for those who aren't super familiar with it, what exactly does a decoy dog do when it comes to the coyote hunt?
So there's different styles. There really is. There's a lot of different styles of decoy hunting. You know, there's the guys that'll keep them near them and use vocalizations and then send their dog out, and then the coyotes see the dog, and then it becomes the same reaction of the other type of decoy. My other friend has a dog that if you can keep a coyote howling out there, she will go all the way to them and get in their living room basically, and then she brings them back. But they're both similar. They're really similar, but what it is typically den sites. In the spring, what you're doing is just putting your dog in their territory, and all they're doing is really just taking care of their young. I mean, they're just there to protect, and that's what coyotes are really good at. They're not, you know, they're survivalists, so of course they're not going to get in an all-out brawl typically, because they're out there to survive, and they know if they get in a fight with a coyote or another dog, they might have the chance of either getting hurt or dying, and coyotes aren't like that. So when you decoy dog, they bite and they nip and they do things like that. But if there is a pack, I mean, they will grab a hold of a dog and stretch it out. I mean, sometimes it gets really, really rank. But in all honesty, it's just a cat and mouse game. Like, hey, get out of my ground. Your dog goes back, and then they follow it back, and it's just it turns into a cat and mouse game where you can just sit back and enjoy the show, and it's really cool.
So a lot of the idea is, obviously, like you said, there's different techniques, but a lot of the idea is just stringing those coyotes along and pulling them in on a kind of like a kite almost.
Exactly.
Just kiting them along and getting them into range.
Yep. And your dog, we have a couple really good videos on Coyote Sniper on our YouTube channel that are super good, kind of show that, where your dog just understands what you're asking of them. Usually, if you've got a good dog, a good working dog, they usually know what their job is. And that's my favorite part of the whole thing is not killing the coyote. Yeah, that's second, is killing that smart coyote that you haven't been able to kill in that area. Not saying it's the same coyote that you missed 4 times, but it's in the same area and you're capitalizing on that kill. Yeah, that's second. But to watch your dog do what they're bred and designed and what you've trained them and done with them and put the time and effort into them, that's the fun part. It's no different than a houndsman going out with his dogs and running a line up a tree. He's not there to kill that lion. It's usually the client, but they were there for, their dogs, watching their dogs, and that's where they get their gratification. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's taking pride in, your animal and what you've worked and trained them to do, and seeing them be successful is just as rewarding as you being successful yourself in that hunt. Yep.
It's no different than a bird dog, any type of hunting that you're into. If you really love your dog and respect them, and I feel like that's just the ultimate. I really do. And I'm honestly new to that game, the whole decoy. I knew it was there. I followed Tony Tebby and watched him do that whole thing, but that was never an option for me. I was a lab guy, and I never thought I could ever teach my lab how to do that. And they're a bigger breed. Typically you're using a smaller breed to do this, not necessarily small, but smaller in stature, and just so that it doesn't intimidate the coyotes as bad. Some guys might think that that's horseshit. You could take a Great Dane out there and do the same thing, which probably you maybe could, but in my mind, in my experience, I feel like the more sized up the dog, the better it can be for you, the more successful you'll be. But I don't know. These are all just my opinions. I kind of hate doing these things, but just because people think you end up being a know-it-all, and you start telling your opinion, but that's all it is. It's just my opinion. Nobody has to take it for, 100%. It's just the way that I live and the way I feel and stuff like that. So I just hope it helps out certain people that want to soak it up.
Oh yeah, everyone's got opinions, but I'll take the when it comes to coyote hunting, I'll take the opinion of a national champion over over a lot of people. I gotta say, there's something behind that experience. Let's take a quick second right here. Hear a word from one of my partners. All right, y'all, we all know there's folks out there who are successful year after year rocking a set of bargain bin Walmart camo. However, a full layering system of premium hunting clothes can make a huge impact on your comfort level when you're spending time deep in the backcountry, and can really be the difference between going longer and harder or just going home. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I personally can't afford to drop $3,000 or even more on a full set of premium hunting gear. Now, that's why I'm excited to tell y'all about Scree Gear. Not only is Scree as capable and durable as any of the other premium lines out there, it also comes in at a price point that won't leave you too broke to put in for tags. Scree's patterns use the science behind perception and fractal concealment and have been designed by one of the foremost concealment experts out there. He's designed for militaries, law enforcement, and special forces in the US and around the world. Not only are their patterns incredibly versatile for any sort of terrain, but their layering systems allow you to pack a minimal amount of gear for maximum effect. So whether you're side-hilling across rocky debris in the baking desert sun or crawling over snow-covered deadfall high up in the frozen Rockies, Scree's versatile layering system has you covered. Literally. And if that's not enough, for that added layer of confidence, Scree offers an outfitter and military discount, a limited lifetime warranty on all their gear, and free returns on new gear until you find the perfect fit. Even better, you can get 10% off all orders from the Scree store by using code COUNTRY10. Check out that Scree discount along with discounts from other awesome outdoor companies by visiting my partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. Okay, we are back from the break. So one thing you've mentioned a few times as we were talking was the importance of location. Whether that, I guess, finding where the coyotes are first and foremost, and then figuring out where you're going to set up. What, when somebody, someone like myself, I'm like, I've heard coyotes around, or I'm had a buddy take me out and now I want to start doing this on my own. How do you even go about finding a location?
Man, I don't know. Just go out and locate with howls and things like that. And if you're getting a response back, they're in the area. They're typically around the cows and the livestock, the antelope, the deer, the food sources have to be there. The water has to be there. Coyotes live anywhere. But if
I mean, it's almost like locating any sort of animal you're hunting. You got to find a place with a food source, whatever they're hunting, and you got to find a place with water. When you say, call, is there, are you just kind of letting off a howl? Is there anything like that? Is there a specific time of day that it might be better to try and locate them?
No, I like nighttime. Just because they're not apt to, see you. But, a siren, something as simple as a siren will work. Just get some noise going and sit there and listen for them.
So, say you've been kind of consistently hearing howls from this location. What do you then look for when you're trying to set up and start really calling them in?
Just some places I can see them coming, if I'm new to the sport, this is something I can, maybe sit back and be able to see them coming from a little ways so I can get myself ready. Man, I don't know. I just look for some good cover and, depending on the day, if where they're going to be, because typically they go to different places during different times of the day, and I don't know. It's hard. I mean, I get this asked a lot. It's always different. It's never the same. It's always different. It's not go sit down, do this time of day. It's not any of those type of things. It's different. Every single stand, guys think I'm full of shit, but every time I sit down, it's different. It really is. I mean, I don't sit down and do one thing. I just try them all. That's probably what I would tell everybody. Just get out there and do it. That's the key right there. Nobody can really teach you. We can all set you in the right direction and give you some pointers, and set you in the right direction. But until you just get out there and sit in the brush and fail, that's the best way to learn, is sit there and fail just until you figure it out. Once you figure it out, it's pretty simple.
So you would say, though, one of the keys is just making sure you've got good line of sight, see whatever's coming. As far as I think you may have mentioned earlier, trying to find shadows as much as possible.
Yeah, I like to get in the shadows. I like to get in the shade. You know, if the sun and the shadows are on the one side of the brush, I sit in that side. You know, but you got to be able to make sure you can see, you know, the coyotes when you're new to it. You know, you don't want those surprise coyotes.
Mm-hmm. And then you also mentioned making sure, of course, you're downwind of your call. About how far do you usually set up from your call?
And that's never a set thing either. You know, sometimes I'll hold it. Sometimes it's 20 yards. Sometimes it's 75 yards. But I would say a good average is 20, 25 yards, 30 yards.
Okay. And do you tend to favor one thing? You know, I've kind of, since I started doing this, I've just been doing research on calling sequences, and you know, you got guys that are saying, this is my go-to calling sequence. It's bulletproof, never fail. And I, you know, anytime somebody says that about anything to do with hunting, I just laugh. But one thing I noticed is some guys tend to prefer calling solely with coyote calls, whether they're, you know, howls and yips, or, you know, female calls or pup distress calls. And then there's a whole other group of guys that call solely with prey calls, you know, distress calls. And the one thing I just haven't seen a lot of crossover. I haven't seen a lot of guys that say, well, either I mix them up or depends on the situation. Do you have a preference between the two?
No, but, you know, what you're going to have the most success with is definitely going to be your prey distress sound. That'll be what gets you the best, you know, the biggest numbers and the best reactions, for sure. Do you think
time of year affects that at all, as far as like what the coyotes are doing, their mindset?
It wouldn't if they weren't pressured. If it was a spot where they've never been pressured, it wouldn't. I mean, prey distress sound would work in February, where around here it doesn't, just because it's been played to them so many different times. So if they're virgin-eared coyotes, it's not going to matter if you go out there and play rabbit distress in February. They've got to eat. They're going to come to that. It doesn't matter. A coyote is always looking for the opportunity. That's what they are. They're opportunists. So if there's food available, they're going to come, whether it's January, February, March, April, May. It doesn't matter. Like, coyotes are coming to the call. They're coming to the call because they've not been called. You know, the place where people get into issues around here is just the pressure. They're just pressured. What do? They hung up, blah, blah, blah. Well, they've been called. They've heard it all. They know it all. They're not stupid. Yeah, they'll come over the ridge 1,000 yards or 500 yards and look at you and kind of be curious, but there's not a lot you can do to kill that coyote until come spring, you know, and then you can kill that coyote.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, we talked about earlier just what you were saying about a coyote's natural curiosity. You know, if it hasn't been super educated, I'm sure you could probably play a lot of sounds, just anything, and it would at least come check it out. It may be a little more cautious than necessary if you're using a prey sound.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're playing fawn distress or you're playing rabbit or you're playing bird. A distressed sound to me is a distressed animal. It doesn't matter. A coyote cannot distinguish between a lot of those. I don't feel like that's, once again, my opinion. If it's distress sound and they're not a call shy coyote, it doesn't matter. Okay, some guys would get all hung up on, we've got a lot of, you know, snowshoe hair around this area. It just cracks me up because, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a desert cottontail or if it's a snowshoe hare. It's a distressed rabbit, in my opinion. So it really doesn't matter what sound you're using as far as that goes. But As far as the vocalizations and things like that go, it's just that takes it to a whole new level. If you're gonna try to just call coyote with those.
I've definitely noticed. I like, it's one of those things to where, yeah, I spent a lot of time on the call website, and I downloaded a bunch of different ones, and I was mostly just having fun listening to different stuff. And I mean, I think to some extent, you know, if you got coyotes that are hunting a bunch of chickens or whatever it is, and that's what you notice they're going after, you know, they're raiding the chicken house.
Right.
Yeah, maybe it's good to throw in a bird distress or chicken distress in there versus a rabbit, but
sure.
Yeah.
And that's true, and that's something I learned with my coyote pups, is because, you know, they did get into the chickens around the house, and if the chickens became distressed by one coyote being there while the female was off in the brush, and she heard the male get into the chickens, she would run like crazy as fast as she could out of the sagebrush from my house, as fast as she could to get to the chicken coop, because she knew there was a chicken on the ground. And I got to watch that. And so there is a little bit to that, I guess, because I would sit there and blow the hand call on the back porch, and neither one of them would show up with just the rabbit distress. So I guess there could be a lot more to it than what I give credit.
But then, I mean, like you were saying, though, I also don't think, you know, you're going to get much more of a reaction if, you know, yeah, like you said, you got a bunch of snowshoe hares in the area and you start using a cottontail distress. I mean, I think to that point, you're just kind of getting ridiculous, or you might have a preference, whatever it is.
Right. That's what it boils down to, is your preference. And the last few stands that you've had success, of course, you're going to go back to that one that works. Why not? And
the other thing I've noticed as I've kind of been researching is I've got some people that are like, okay, you know, you've got to call for, you know, a minute or 2 minutes, and then you got to sit and wait and, you know, turn off your call, keep it silent, wait for him to come in, and then turn on the call again. Other people are just like, no, man, I just throw on my raspy Redbird and sit back and wait for something to come in. If nothing comes in after the 20 minutes of it squawking the whole time, I go to my next place. What are your thoughts as far as, like, you know, adding some silence in there, swapping calls during a stand?
It just depends. I don't think messing around with, you know, if one's not working, go to the next, you know. I do that, even me. So I can't say don't do that, but there's times where we just run the call continuously, you know, and then there's times where we don't. It's just, I don't know, filling it out the way you feel, really. It all boils down to the way you feel about it. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way.
It feels like a lot of this is pretty much just because the coyotes are so, each and every one and situation is so different. It kind of feels like just keep trying stuff. If something's not working, obviously stop doing it and vary it up.
Right. No doubt.
So you kind of mentioned when we were talking about the tournaments that you had made a couple in the one tournament. You had made a couple of rookie mistakes. I'm always a big fan of learning from our mistakes. What were those mistakes you mentioned, if you don't mind sharing those?
Having coyotes come on my downwind, just basically less than 10 feet out of my scent cone, knowing I was going to have to make a move, and in a super windy condition, typically you can get away with a little bit more movement. And I just tried to get away with more movement than what I should have without a shotgun really close by, and, you know, just basically had a stare off with a coyote at 10 feet for as long as I possibly could, you know, going on 3-minute long stare down between the brush, him and I, and thinking I could make a move on the coyote when I should have just, you know, waited until he went out in front of me and shot him out in front of me. I tried to make a move, and he busted me, and we sat there and had a stare off competition, and he ended up winning the run back into the brush, you know. And then another rookie mistake is I shot 2 shots at him as he was running back into the brush, and sat my butt back down and got back to calling, because that's just what you do, and sat back down and started calling, and another coyote out of the exact same area. And I, was already pretty shooken by what had just happened, and wasn't even expecting a second coyote out of the same spot, and went to go move on that coyote, and moved on that coyote, and quick. I didn't put another round in my in my chamber, and it's just stuff like that, just makes you really think, like, maybe you're not that good. Are there any other mistakes you tend to see a lot of new coyote hunters or rookies making, or even as in the tournaments that you hear other people talking? Man, just not getting moved at the right time. You got to wait till they drop in a wash or getting some thick brush. You got to make your move to get yourself situated where you think they're going to come out at the right time. You can't be moving and doing your thing while they're coming to the call. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes a lot of guys make. They don't know when to make those moves, and you got to make them fast. A lot of times, sometimes you make them slow. Sometimes you have to make them slow. It just depends on the coyote and his body language and the way he's coming in. You want to move faster when it's a faster moving coyote, and you only have a little while to get ready. But if it's a janky little sucker that is eyeballing you down and bouncing his head all around, you're only going to get one chance, and you got to just slowly creep your gun around to get your shot on him. There's different ways you got to move, and different times you got to move, and just watching and learning, basically just learning from failure. That's how you learn.
Well, definitely.
Well, I can't do that again. I guess won't try that again. You know what I mean? But you will. You'll make another mistake. You'll make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
We're all human. We're all going to make a mistake.
So, speaking, just kind of winding down and talking about learning from mistakes, I've been calling out my mistakes here. I've been out on a few stands. I called in, my first stand, called in 2 coyotes. One came running in. We were at the bottom of a little ledge, and one came running in and sat about 3 feet above our heads, and neither of us could manage to get swung around in time to plug it. And we had another one that hung up probably about I'd say, 75 yards out. And my nephew took a shot, unfortunately, wasn't able to connect on it. And then I connected on one about 30 yards out and wasn't able to find it. But so I've had some successes, and I've tried replicating that. But then lately, I've been varying up my spots and locations, places I've heard coyotes. I'm just not getting any response. What would you say to, 5 or 6 stands, just absolute, or multiple stands, 5 or 6 nights out? What would you say to someone kind of in my situation where it's like, yeah, I had some success up front. I've tried replicating that, and I've tried since varying it up. I'm just not really getting any success, any response. I can hear the coyotes all night howling, but what advice would you give someone that came up to you and was just kind of discouraged about that?
I don't know, man. I get put in this situation all the time. I really don't know. I mean, you just got to keep going. You just got to keep doing it. Keep trying different things, really. Don't give up. If you really love it and you got a passion for it, you'll figure it out.
There you go.
You really, really want to do it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's got to be something you really want to do, and that's why I tell a lot of these new up-and-coming little kids, it's like, don't go spending $400 on an electronic call. Go get you a hand call. Get out there in the brush. Make sure you like it first. Make sure you want to invest the time to learn this sport that's super, super popular and 10 times harder now than it ever has been. So
definitely.
It's 10 times harder to call coyotes nowadays, but it's 10 times easier to find out some information on how to do it. So
hopefully that balances it out a little bit.
Yeah, it's catch-22, really.
Random another just random question. What have been your experiences with calling coyotes and weather, whether it's rain or snow, or have you noticed they react in inclement weather?
I'm not a big, I like right before a storm if it's calm, and I like right after a storm. That's every coyote hunter's dream, going out after fresh snow. They're going to be hungry. It's just playing scenarios out in your head. They've sat up underneath the brush and waited out the storm just like every other rabbit. And so they're hungry and they're going to want to come out and play. And it's just playing those type of things in your head, making it sound good to yourself in your head. I don't know if they're really true, but I feel like wind shuts coyotes down just because they can't hear,
Mm-hmm.
They can't hear and they can't smell as well. But as far as like moon phases and certain barometric pressures and things like that, I don't play much into that. And I used to when I was, trying to make any excuse I could for the unsuccess, for not having the success. I was just basically making excuses to myself. But that's just what I felt.
I'm going to start using that all the time now, though, man. Oh, man, it was a crappy hunt, but, the barometric pressure was off, so it's really what it was.
You have to do something to make yourself feel halfway decent about coming home skunked, you know what I mean? You're just like, oh, yeah, you go home and you tell your wife. She's like, how come you always come home empty-handed? Oh, babe, man, it had to have been the barometric pressure. That's just where you go. They don't even know what barometric pressure is, but they have to believe you. She's looking at me rolling her eyes right now.
Until you come home one day, she's got a barometer and a Wikipedia page open, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, right.
But all right, man. As we're finishing this up, I always like to end it just with, I target this podcast, I kind of mentioned before, at just folks that may not think they have the resources or the background to get into hunting, whether, they're from the city or they weren't raised in it, just hunting in general in the outdoors. Somebody came up to you and said, man, I've seen what you do. I've seen what all these guys do. It looks exciting. I'm really interested in it, but I just, I'm a little intimidated by all this. What would you tell that person?
Man, like I said, if you really, really want to learn it, you'll just do what you got to do to learn it. And don't be afraid to ask questions. The resources are there. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty easy to deal with on Instagram. Sometimes people think I'm being short with them or whatnot, but it's not. It's just because I really don't like the text message. But I'll send you a video message if I can and get back with you and try to help you any way I can. But don't be afraid to ask questions, and definitely don't be afraid to fail, because you're gonna fail. You're gonna be, you're gonna beat yourself up a lot more than you're gonna be successful. That's for sure.
Definitely noticed that. Much appreciated, man. I thank you so much for hopping on. If people wanted to find you on the interwebs, where are they looking?
Man, you could go to the Brush Wolf Hunter page, and that's just my personal page. I just kind of use it as my hunting journal, and it's fun to be able to reflect back on the times that I've had, and that's how I use my Instagram, and that's where I'm at. So I guess you can look up the Brush Wolf Hunter.
Awesome. Well, I'll link to your page on Instagram. I'll grab that old Coyote Sniper YouTube channel. Did you say you also have the mule deer insurance?
Yeah.
Where can people check that out?
It's a share page. I use that, because I have a pretty good following on Instagram. I don't really know how I got it, but I did, and
it's the hair, man. It's the glorious mane. That's why people follow.
But I just built the brand, and I figured I better have a page for my brand, and I use it as a share page to put people on and show their success in using the hashtag mule deer insurance or Coyote Sniper or whatever. I'll find some cool pictures and I'll get them thrown up,
Awesome. Well, I will link to all those on the show notes page. Just want to say thank you again so much for hopping on. I know we've had some technical difficulties a couple of times trying to get this get this going, but I appreciate you sticking through it with me.
You bet, man. I appreciate the phone call.
All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 86 of Living Country in the City. Big thank you to Garrett for taking the time out of his day to hop on and chat with me. Make sure y'all head on over to the show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/86. Check out links to everything we talked about in today's episode. Also, make sure y'all head on over to the support page at livingcountryinthecity.com/support. Figure out how you can join the Living Country in the City team. But in the meantime, keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.